I am Courtney Williams. I produce the blog Outlander Behind the Scenes. I do cast and crew interviews. I do this discussion with these three amazing women, and I write blog posts. I'm a book fan, huge show fan. And tonight we have a merging of book and show with the episode 511 Journeycake, written by Diana Gabaldon, directed by Jamie Payne. And I am drinking ice with a little water.
Yes, Antoinette Simmons here. Of the show, found it in season 2, and immediately went out and bought the books, which I've read quite a few times since I discovered them. And tonight, in honor of our discussion of this fantastic episode, I'm drinking a light beer out of my fancy glass, my fancy goblet.
All right.
Cheers.
I am Catherine. I am a family physician who enjoys both the books and the show. Not a purist by any stretch of the imagination. I enjoy them both. I write periodically for Blacklanders for various episodes. And of course, I enjoy these lovely discussions with my sisters in crime. And I am drinking.
That's exactly what we are, actually.
I know. I am drinking Angry Orchard apple rosé hard cider.
A beautiful color.
Yeah.
I'm Carmen Schmidt. I write the Outlander Anatomy blog. I enjoy the books first. I didn't start reading until 2014, the same year that season 1 started. Since that time, I'm on my 13th read through all of the big books, and I love them. I love the show. I'm happy to be here with these brilliant ladies, and I am drinking. Oh, I've been a professor of human anatomy for if I count my blog, it's now 42 years. I am drinking a homemade Cadillac margarita tonight.
Oh.
Uh-oh. I know what
is
that means.
Yeah, it's a yummy one. So I'm going to be
Nice.
giggling. I'm going to be giggling a lot because when I
Nice.
drink
Oh,
something
God.
nice like this, I start giggling.
And tell
Especially
everyone
if
how much you love them.
And other things. I love their parts, too. Their anatomical.
That'll be
That-
good.
Absolutely. Especially those.
I'm going to give my overall impression. Oh, this is kind of hard to, I'll be honest, when I first watched, I was like, wow, am I going to actually evaluate Diana's episode? This feels a little intimidating. And then I found this episode to be similar to her books. I found it to be, at first, I kind of articulate. I feel almost like a sponge, like I have soaked it in, it has gone into me, and now I am related to it the more I've watched it, and it just blooms. It just keeps blooming, kind of like her books. When you reread them and you go, oh wow, I didn't, not like notice when we say things I notice, it's more like, to my experience, it just continues rippling, and I'm so thankful that I've had almost a week to be with this material before we talk about it, because I certainly don't think I would have done it service after a day or two, for my part. So I'm having a hard time using words like I really liked this episode, because it just feels too light. This episode moved me. This episode affected me. This episode is winding around inside me, still unfolding or it's very organic, I find. So yeah, that's my overall impression.
Interesting.
Is that Misha snoring?
Yeah.
Oh.
I
kept hearing the sound, and I'm like,
I thought somebody
jumping to
was gargling
Antoinette.
back there.
Okay, it's weird that you said that, Courtney, because when I watched the episode first, at the end of it, I didn't quite know what to make of it. It left me with almost a weird feeling of dissatisfaction. I wouldn't even say dissatisfaction. I just couldn't put my finger on it. You know, I didn't like it. I wouldn't use the word like either. I didn't hate it. I just felt, I didn't immediately rewatch it. I let it, go a few days, and then I watched it in the middle of the week. And on my third watching of it, I was able to sort of, I still can't tell you what my overall impression of the episode was. I mean, objectively, it was good TV because it was well produced, well done. The performances were great. And so from that perspective, I'm going to say that it was a really, really good episode, well produced TV, engaging from start to finish. But I'll have to think a little bit more about my personal connection to the episode, if that makes any sense.
It does to me.
My overall impression was that it was middle of the road. I think that knowing that Diana had written it, I might set my expectations a little high. In everything that was, the writing was really the only thing that was good. Everything else was okay. I felt like the editing and the acting let her writing down. Given the episode and what was in there and the dialogue that they were given, I just had so little of an emotional reaction to it that I don't know if there was just too much shoved into the episode, if the editing took out too much that led to build up. It just seemed like it was too incongruent in terms of human interaction, and the timeline didn't fit. It just seemed like there was just so much that just didn't work for me. But I enjoyed it overall because it left a nice cliffhanger. But and Diana definitely got some stuff in there that everyone's waiting to hear. But overall, I think her writing was let down.
Well, we may be all over the map on this one because I would give this episode 5 stars. There was no superfluous scenes in it, in my opinion. Every scene had something to add to the story and the characters. And I thought they were very well thought out. I'm sure, that the editing played a part in how it came across in the end. But I just thought it was splendid TV. And I'm not sure I breathed during the entire episode very much. I just found it just mesmerizing.
I will say the first time I watched it, the cold open I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
And then we came into the episode and there was a lag period for me where I kind of was like, ugh. And then it picked back up. But when I went back and rewatched and spent time with those scenes that I thought were really laggy, I thought they were really good. So it's almost like I had to take it as not the episode as a whole, but as each scene.
Oh.
Do you know?
Get out my head, Courtney. Get out of my head.
Yeah, if you take it as each scene, which may be what you're saying, Catherine, the writing, if you take it as each scene, it's like, wow, that was really good. Wow, that was really good. But maybe there's something. I don't know. Yeah, this one's interesting. Let's go to favorite scenes. Antoinette.
Oh gosh, I have a few favorite scenes because just going back to what you said, Courtney, one of the things that I came away with when I was thinking about the episode was that after that first initial impression of slight disappointment, when I rewatched it, I realized that there was no scene aside from one that wasn't a good scene. The scenes themselves were very well done, but there is some kind of disconnect probably in how it all came together for me. So to go to my favorite scene would have had to have been when Jamie and Claire told Ian, when Ian confronted them and told him about Claire. I thought that was one of my favorite scenes because I loved how Ian, just took the bull by the horns. It wasn't all hokey and stupid. They treated him like an adult, and that was one of my favorites. One other favorite scene was the Browns. That first scene with Lionel and the whole party coming up to talk to Jamie that first time. The casting again of those two brown men was just brilliant. They are so relentlessly malevolent and just bubbling under the surface with them that they just crawl. So that was a very, very good scene for me as well.
My favorite scene was when Ian was playing with Jimmy with the opal. Mm-hmm. I thought that the little boy, I think they're twins who play Jimmy, just did a phenomenal job in that scene. I just felt, actually throughout the whole episode, but definitely in that scene. My other favorite was when Claire and Jamie went to visit Ulysses, and that whole scene. I felt like he just really I did get emotional during that scene. And he has the most beautiful skin. Oh my gosh. But then when I saw his parents who don't look their ages, I was like, well, that explains it. I mean, my gosh. That voice is just chocolate through and through. My other favorite scene was when Claire woke up having a hot flash. I thought that was just a nice touch to put in. I just like when they add things about older women, and then it just kind of went into, yeah, I'm having a hot flash, but hey, I'm hot for my husband too. So that was nice. I like that.
I had a very hard time choosing my favorite for this particular episode because honestly, I liked all of them. I can't think of a single scene in this episode, and I'm not trying to suck up to Diana. I'm trying to be truthful here. I can't think of a single scene that I did not like in this episode. And that's not been the case. There have been places where it didn't work. I don't want to say favorite. So what I did is I chose scenes that were outstanding for certain reasons. One of them that was the most heart-wrenching, I thought, was between Bree and Lizzie. The tears just started flowing down my face as I watched and listened to Lizzie express her disbelief, first of all, that she wasn't going to be going, and then her disbelief that Bree would not think of herself as brave, and then her disbelief that she was not going to be asked to come later. And I just thought that she played it brilliantly. I think for drama, the lighting of the fiery cross, the name of this whole season, at the end was just, oh my gosh, I had chills running up and down my back. And the music that Bear created for that it ends with the tattoo with the drum. And it's just the snare drum, like military, and that was a thrill. The thrill to see him running up there, and a thrill to light the cross. And my husband, I had already seen it by then, but when he first saw it, he said, big mistake, big mistake. He was referring to the Browns. For humor and wit, it's the sperm scene. I just think that is so funny. And then finally, for sadness, deep, deep sadness, it would have to be the Dutch family, the burning of the Dutch family's home.
Yeah.
So I'm in love with this episode.
Would you let it get you pregnant?
Yes, I would. If I could. It's a little late, but I'd be willing to try.
You'd like to try, right?
My favorite scene is actually the one between Jamie and Brianna, when he goes in and tells her about her brother. I just felt like there's something particularly with Sam when he does Diana's writing, when he acts Diana's writing, there's a flow that comes through. And that scene for me was that. It was just completely almost like vibrating. And I thought of you, Catherine, like as I rewatched it, I looked for any Sam. You know, he's just Jamie. And I thought Sophie did a good job in that scene. And that scene really, really touched me. I had a hard time trying to decide what my second one was because there are several that I really love. And I said young Ian and Jemmy also. Just the joy. And then I read that he was singing baby shark do 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 baby shark do do. That's how he was getting him to. He was chasing him, and John Bell was singing that to him. But just that little boy, those little boys are so cute, and we all have kids, so you know when your kids are in rapture and it's real, and then just his little. It's broken, you know, his little just baby things. Oh, it was so cute. Them together, they have chemistry. Young Ian and Jemmy. And then I would say my third one was Jamie and Jemmy on the horse, of course. I was like, oh, melt, melt, melt. You know, even though it's just through the window, it's just, again, all my favorites except for the first one have Jemmy. And the last one was the three of them at the Stones for the same reason. When, you know, she says, hold on, and he's like, am I holding it tight? You know, and just it's sweet. He really, they got him to really do a great job in this episode. And I thought the scenes with him were just precious.
It's almost like he was ad-libbing, but it was so natural that it seemed like he was ad-libbing, but you're like, but he's a toddler. I mean, he's probably not.
He was ad-libbing.
He was like, come on, Daddy.
To what they were saying, you know?
Exactly. You know, come on, Daddy.
Let's move on to what worked for you, Antoinette.
Okay, let me start with, as I said, the casting. Those brown boys, men, they are they're just brilliant. I love every single thing about what they have brought to those characters. They're believable, they're scary, they are so creepy, just brilliant. So that has worked for me. And like you, Courtney, I am entranced with those little boys. They are just the best. And I don't know how they're getting them to deliver those few lines, but whoever is coaxing them behind the scenes, whatever they're doing, excellent job. What also worked for me as a book reader is how they were able to distill so many big plot points and overlapping stories into little bite-sized chunks in the episode that said so very much. Like for instance, when with Ulysses and Jamie and Claire, you know, in that little scene, we got so much backstory because in the very last thing he said to them is that he decided to stay for her. And in the delivery of that her,
Yeah.
just
Fabulous.
so much in it. That is the kind of television I'm here for. That speaks to my intellect, that makes me figure things out, that leaves it up to me to create my own backstory, that I'm not spoon-fed stuff. So the use of just small things to tell so much story, that really, really worked in this episode. There is another, there was another example of that with Roger and Bree, and they were talking about why they were leaving. Because, I mean, the book readers all know that there's a whole big story arc around why they decided to leave. And in one line, Roger says, it's not just the danger, it's that we're living a life we were not meant to live. And that made sense for me, rather than just pulling up sticks because he's afraid of the danger and leaving his family, making Bree leave her family. So as a book reader, knowing how much was cut out of the whole leading up to them leaving and seeing them just capture some rationale that I could latch on to, that was believable for me to explain why they would leave, that really, really worked. And our last thing, I am like you, Courtney, and I think you, Catherine, I am seeing so much more of the Jamie that Diana wrote during season 5. So it was another prime example of it. In that first initial scene where they found the burnt out cabin, and let me just say that that scene was masterful. It was masterful because the juxtaposition of the family outing, talking about peanut butter and ice cream and just beautiful family out for a ride, and then they come upon this horror. And whoever did the makeup for the burnt late girl, oh my God, kudos to them. And we saw how far Roger and Jamie's relationship has come in that scene. It didn't take much for us to realize that these men have come to not only an understanding, but a trust and respect. Because Roger took the initiative in terms of how they were going to put the young lady out of her suffering, and Jamie just ceded control of that to him. So that whole arc and how they have handled it, that worked for me, and it really came to a nice culmination for me in this episode. I'm never going to wonder again how Jamie feels about Roger and how the relationship is going to play out. So all of those things really worked for me in this episode.
What worked for me, again, was Claire as a doctor. I really, really have liked the way they have portrayed her as a doctor in this season. She's compassionate, she's curious, she's just a good clinician, even if Jamie does criticize her bedside manner from time to time. But I just really like the fact that no matter what's going on, her medical mind is always on, and that's just so true. And it doesn't matter who it is. If she sees someone in need, she just takes care of it. The ad-libbing of Jimmy, I mean, just every single scene he was in, it was so he would probably be the most natural actor in the whole episode. Because it was just so realistic. It was clear it wasn't a child who had memorized lines and was just delivering them. But the other thing that worked for me was the scene between, apart from the walls, which were beautiful. Oh gosh, that turquoise, orgasmic. But it really was.
Gets you pregnant too.
Yeah, really.
In the parlor that used to be their bedroom.
Yeah. It's that deep turquoise. I'm not even sure. I tried to find the color to get the name of it, and I couldn't find it. Right, something happened. I got distracted. But the other thing that worked for me was, especially what kind of plays into what I said originally about Claire, was when the interaction between her and Brown when he said, father has a right to.
That was a good one.
Event, and it's like it gave her pause because suddenly she had been so judgmental against him, and then realized that he did the exact same thing that they had done the episode before. I thought that was pretty poignant, but I a lot worked for me in snippets instead of the whole continuum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing I wrote down was the complexity that Diana includes, for example, with Lionel and Claire. That's something that I think is missing sometimes from the show, where it's, in the past at least, where exactly what you said, Catherine, where you see, he is a weasel and, a bad guy, but he was just trying to protect his daughter, which is what they just did. And so it gives her pause, and there is that complexity of, and that, kind of what we were talking about last time, he's a human, he's a flawed human.
Mm-hmm.
And so is she, and that moment you see that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And she's taking care of him and treating him, and it's almost like they might find some common ground to, be on better footing with each other. But I actually liked the transitions. I liked the how they let us know that time had passed. That also doesn't get addressed in other episodes, in the beginning, where it's like we know that in the last episode, I think it was, Claire talks about dyeing the indigo, or maybe two, and then it's becoming fall, and then we go through the little transition that we see the seasons change, and then they give us a date. I liked that orientation, and I feel like we don't, sometimes we're like, what?
We don't get that sometimes. Yeah.
What happened?
But Jemmy stayed the same age.
Yes, Jemmy did stay the same. I did notice that. He was a very static 2-year-old.
Whatever age he is, he stayed it.
Yeah.
So did Jermaine, though.
Yeah. Yeah, Jermaine's been the same age for a long time.
Yeah. The entire season.
So, but that's kind of hard. I don't know if they've already had baby Jemmy and then this one. So, and then that whole cold open, what I loved about that, there were a lot of things I loved about it, but I liked that it was the way it was arranged. The men went to check first. They didn't have like Claire bursting in because she's the doctor. The men went first, and then as soon as they got there and they saw what it was, he called for her. Ta-da! I loved that because that makes sense. The men are the protectors. They, and Claire's the doctor. So I just thought that was really great. And then Richard's performance in that, when he's euthanizing that child, and he's bawling, and then Sam reading that prayer with just that that scene was amazing between those two men and that child. The peanut butter and jelly title card scene worked for me. I was really excited that got put in there with the saran wrap floating around away.
Yeah, I like the saran wrap because it's like it was a portend of things to come. Those are the clever little things that I love. Sorry, Courtney, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But
forgive me for moving around.
Was supposed to go into 306 when she goes back to Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, as I've been corrected by taxi drivers. I liked also when they told young Ian, and Jamie goes and closes the door. So there's going to be more conversation. I just felt there were those little touches in this episode that are not always taken care of. And I really appreciated those.
After watching it several times, I was struck with the with the completion of story arcs that were started earlier and then weren't just left dangling. Now, some were. One was a very big one at the end, near the end, but that they were returned to, and we were fed more information and given more insight into what was going on. I think The Browns was a great example of that particular one. I thought Claire helping him with his stinky leg, which it could have been his body odor too. I'm sure I doubt he ever bathed.
His poor
but
wife.
yes. And then the whole business between Jamie and Richard Brown going on with Wendigo and and Hodgepile, which I thought was an interesting thing, because Brown says to Jimmy, Hodgepile has one company.
Mhm.
And I think we're going to see what that company, I mean, we've already seen what they were up to, but I think they probably were responsible for the Dutch burning. And I'm not sure that Richard knows about that, but I think Hodgepile's group probably includes Lionel, but we'll see. That's my thinking on that particular one. Then later, when he says to her about his daughter, don't you think that a father has the right to defend the dishonoring of his daughter? And Claire looks at him with a very startled look on her face. Of course, the first thing that was easy to do was to go back to Bonnet, but actually it goes all the way back to Roger, because he saw the same thing happened with Roger. Jamie was avenging his daughter on who he thought was the perpetrator of the rape. Then he finds out, of course, that he was mistaken. So Bonnet gets it a second time in a second round. But there were 2 times that he actually tried to avenge the dishonoring of his daughter. And then finally, when Lionel brings his wife in, and his just really sly, slimy looking, to the side, and it's just creepy beyond measure to me. He's doing a great job with it. And finally, the end scene where we see at least Wendigo and Hodgepile were in the group that abducted her. That whole arc played out well. So going through the whole episode, I felt like that was very satisfying to see the growth of that story arc. Another one that I thought was so very wonderful was the peanuts. That here they are riding back from Willem's Mill, and she's got these bags of peanuts, and Jamie says, "Well, what do you got them for? Are you going to give them to the sow?" And then they get interrupted by the horrific scene at the Dutch cabin. But then later you see them peeling them on the porch. Now, one of the things that I thought was a little bit odd was that it actually showed them roasting them
in the show
after they were, I mean, the peeling came before the roasting. It could have been a second batch. I don't know, but I thought that was a little bit strange. And then finally to see the journey cake, and then to see Jamie cutting it up with a fork. It reminded me of the Bannock way back in the Watch episode in season 1, where he's biting that piece of bread. But I loved him cutting it up. I thought it was a very clever, and I know he thought of it, but I thought that was extremely clever and something that Jamie would do. I could just see, I didn't think it was out of character at all. So those are 2 things that I really enjoyed, but they covered, it wasn't just a single scene. It actually covered multiple scenes, but the storyline carried through. The third one was with Ulysses and the solution to his problem, because North Carolina didn't recognize, it's my understanding that in those days it did not recognize manumission, and it gave people permission that if they saw a person who was a freed slave, that they could take that person as their own slave and enslave them once again. So to find a solution through Lord John Grey, I thought was brilliant. And it was satisfying to think that this man was going to get out of, the predicament that he found himself in, only through an effort to save a woman's life whom he cared about. And I like that Lord John said, the minute you step on a British ship, you will be a free man. And I just thought that was a lovely Diana type solution to a very complex problem.
Yeah, I wonder who thought of that
Yeah, I wonder.
in real life. I'll just add a couple more quickly. Did the smile that Claire gives Jamie? He's not asleep yet. He's reading and she's getting up to go. It is the sweetest smile. I haven't seen anything like that since season 1.
Well, Claire has a smile like that, like Ellen. Remember Murtaugh?
Yes. Well, it was definitely a smile to warm the backbone. I thought the scene between Claire, Marcelly, Rose, and Lionel, I thought that was 4 really strong actors together in a scene. I really enjoyed that. And it was, what I liked about it was her face, when Claire was trying to say, this is again something different than we've gotten in the past in season 4 with the feminist stuff. Claire saying this stuff and she's kind of like, well, yeah, what husband wouldn't? And, her reaction is she really holds a place for an 18th century, we're in the 18th century. Mm-hmm. You're saying this stuff, but and she keeps looking at Marcy like, is this woman crazy? Well, yeah, he gets angry if I don't do the chores. Well, of course I appreciated that. I always appreciate when they stay in the time period. I think Ian and Roger have great chemistry. I loved that scene with them. That was really short. Fergus's blue eyes and his indigo shirt really worked for me too.
He looked good.
Yeah.
Very good.
He's been let out of dialogue jail.
Yes. And did a great job again.
Just piggybacking off what Carmen said with that the whole brown arc of that story. Again, I come to one of the reasons why I thought this episode was a bit of brilliance, because they were able to take this big chunk out of the book. Because remember, the whole regulator thing that we as book readers, they never played it up because they gave all of that to Murtaugh and the taxes. So to explain the malevolence of the Browns towards Jamie and the people at Fraser's Ridge, and Claire in particular, I liked how they threaded that through right from the company we keep episode all the way up through episode 507 when he stepped on the thing to the beginning of it with the Dr. Rawlins thing with the mistake with the paper. That was very, very clever, and it was all it's all believable, even without knowledge of how it developed in the books. We understand the animosity, and we also understand that the significance of somebody like Lionel Brown seeing the Rawlins name in Claire's surgery. So that was very, very clever. And as I said again, what this episode succeeded in doing as a penultimate episode was to wrap up so many of the storylines and scene for the finale. A bit of brilliance.
Yes, I agree. And again, I can't imagine what that would have looked like in other hands.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a mess, actually.
It could have been a bloodbath.
Yeah. Or just a chaotic mess. Least favorite scene?
Listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I love David Berry. But if this Lord John Gray popping up for no freaking particular reason is annoying as figgity. I don't understand the reasoning behind having this man in this season, just popping up all over the place. Don't make any sense. Where is his estate? It's not just down the road and around the corner, is it? It's far. And he is there at Fraser's Ridge every freaking time. Who is looking after his property? The
It's
hell?
been close to a year, though, has gone by. They're
I don't
trying to
care.
show us.
He has been there every time. I'm sick of him. If they weren't going to give him a proper storyline, I don't understand them keeping him around to just pop up. Because a lot of the stuff that he did, for instance, in this episode, when he came up with, when he told Brianna of the solution for Ulysses, some other character could have said that. Jamie could have said that, we're going to I'm going to contact John and blah, 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 blah. Why have they wasted this man's obvious talent just having him, like, I figure so his scene with Brianna, I didn't understand why that was necessary. I don't understand the necessity to really cultivate and promote this fatherly role that Lord John Grey has with Brianna, when a real freaking father is there who sacrificed for her to live. And it seems to me that in a lot of ways, she's portrayed as being closer to Lord John Grey than to Jamie. And that irks me. Two wasted scenes as far as I'm concerned. I'm sorry. The acting and blah, 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 all of it was fine, but I just thought it was a waste. So those were my least favorite scenes. And other least favorite scene. No, I'm not going to say that. No, it's other two.
No, I want to hear it.
I know everybody is in tears over Lizzie and Brianna. I'm saying, that did not ring true for me. I'm sorry. I didn't cry. I was annoyed. I probably have a heart of stone or something, because
I had the same reaction,
I'm
actually.
sitting there and I'm saying, what the hell? You are the bravest woman I know. I mean, some of those lines were a bit hokey. I'm sorry. I don't care who wrote them. They were kumbaya. They were a bit
blasphemous.
Kumbaya. Because Lizzie, with making assumptions, is the one that caused the catastrophe that happened in season 4. So I am not buying this. Oh, Lizzie, I was meant to be with you. Bullshit. So, I'm sorry. I didn't like that scene at all. And, no.
Now we agree on this time. My least favorite was when Lord John and Bree were on the porch. While I was watching it for the 3rd time, my daughter was just standing nearby, and she said, "Oh, so he's in love with her?" And I was like, "No, he's in love with her father." She goes, "Well, I guess maybe that's why he's looking at her like that." I was like, because that's the impression I get every time they interact. Their chemistry is stronger than with anybody else. And he looks at her like he's in love with her. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way he looks at people, but she doesn't even look at Jamie that way. So that was my least favorite scene. As much as I love Lord John Grey, David Barry came off a little vampiric to me. So I couldn't, it was just a bit strange. My other least favorite, I guess it really wasn't a scene, but you know how I am about walls. That damn wallpaper in their new bedroom. Oh, I hate it. Anywho, so we'll talk about it. I just did not like that wallpaper. I found it so distracting. To me, it just took me way out of that whole scene that could have been so nice and beautiful. I was just thinking, how ugly. And you have such a beautiful color downstairs. Nah, yeah. The other thing that at least favorite was watching Claire ride. Oh gosh, it got on my nerves. I ride a little bit. I mean, I'm not by any stretch of the imagination an equestrian, but her writing annoyed me. It was just like, you can't push a horse along with your hips. Come on now. It was like, Jamie was so smooth and Sammy was writing, and hers was just like, what are you doing? That distracted me every time I saw her on a horse. Oh, the Lizzie scene. That was the other one. And the one with Jamie and Bree were talking about William.
Mhm.
It just seemed like, when are you leaving? In a week. Okay, it seems like he would know from second to second when they're about to leave.
Mhm.
It just seemed like kind of odd. And then why would you wait till the last minute to tell Lizzie she's not coming with you when you're telling everybody else you're leaving? I know, it just didn't seem, I don't know. She's talking about Brave. Maybe she was avoiding them, because it looked like she was avoiding Claire too. So maybe she was just avoidance all the way around. But it just seems odd. The dialogue was great. The acting was okay. Actually, I thought that Lizzie, the young lady, is it Caitlin?
Yeah.
She did a good job. I liked her acting. I was like, I noticed her for the first time actually in this episode. I was like, oh, she's kind of good. But yeah, the scene didn't do much for me though.
Well, I have a couple comments on your things. Antoinette, I knew you might say that about Lord John. And do you remember me saying he reminded me of Dracula before?
Mhm.
Says, your parents. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I get
okay,
that
I remember
same,
now.
that vampire thing. And a little bit, it's the hair, a little
Mhm.
bit, and the
Mhm.
pale skin. And in the scene
Mhm.
with Brie, I could see his makeup. I
Hmm.
feel like, and that was distracting for me. But so Antoinette, I thought you might say something about that. So I actually looked up how far it is between North Carolina and Virginia, and how long it would take to ride on horseback. And you would do about 30 miles a day. So it would take 3 to 4 full days to ride between those. So that's doable. I did think he was extremely clean for having ridden 3 to 4 days on a horse. Does love Jamie. So my least favorite scene, believe it or not, it was the young Ian, Bree, and Claire by the river.
Oh yeah.
That one to me just didn't feel as organic or realistic. I mean, John Bell's a great actor. I don't know. There was just something awkward about that scene for me. And then when Bree and Claire run together, that also felt a little too staged.
Contrived.
Yeah. And I agree with the Lord John Grey. Did you guys read? There's David Barry said something about this was his last time on the show.
Yeah, I read that. I don't know if that was just something to kind of get people, kind of leave a question mark. Just like Rick said the same thing when he in his episode, where he said goodbye to fans.
Well, I'm curious if they're going to announce a spinoff.
Oh,
if it could be a little bit of a.
I took it that he meant that he wouldn't be back in season 6.
Yeah,
not that he would never come back, but he wouldn't be there in season 6.
Yeah, somebody said, "You mean for this season?" And he said, "No, for the show."
Yeah, so, and I got the impression it was one of those things where he was kind of getting people riled.
And I don't know how they cannot do anything with him.
He's pretty, but I think Antoinette, that's what I was going to say is, in this book, almost all of his interactions are over letter or by letter. And I think in order to retain an actor, you have to give them work. Unless it's going to be like the farmers that you pay not to farm, And so
I understand that, but they've made so many changes and done so many stuff. I mean, so if they could do what they did for Murta, they have fashioned something
a little meatier,
pop up and just say a line or two and just be gone again. But that's me, overall, it has not detracted from the season, but it's like a little niggling thing every time I see it. I'm just mad mostly mad on his behalf because he's a great guy and a good actor. You know, sure he would have loved to have been used more.
Right, like Fergus. Sorry.
Since he's had to leave his family in Australia and be in Scotland.
Yes.
Only to pop up an episode and say 2 or 3 lines and be gone again, or have one anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, Carmen, least favorite scenes?
I didn't
Or
really
things that didn't
have
work
any
for you?
least favorite scenes. Like I said before, I'm ready to do my 9 months with this. The closest I can come sort of borders on the medical, because I thought that Claire's reduction of the gentleman's dislocated shoulder was really badly done.
Oh, yes.
It wasn't anything like, it was something that Angus would have done. That he threatened to do, force it back into place. The one that she used on Jamie is called a cocher maneuver. And I think that's what she meant to duplicate, but it was not well executed at all. Mm-hmm. So that was my least favorite scene, because I know she's, we think she's a skilled clinician with diagnostic skills, surgical skills. She's got skills with herbs and things like that, and medications. And I just felt that didn't do her justice, or the poor patient either.
Well, she did better as a nurse than she did as a doctor.
Yeah, which is really interesting.
Oh, good point. Like,
so
she had any training.
Well, no, she would have probably had training in it, being in a military field hospital like she was.
Maybe she's rusty as a surgeon.
Yeah.
Well, whatever the reason, she did not do a good job on that reduction. A poor guy, I felt sorry for him.
Yeah, he died stabbed anyway. Yes.
No, he didn't survive very long. That's for sure.
Oh Lord.
And I loved. No, that's what I love. So I won't.
Okay, things I noticed, Antoinette.
Okay. Things I noticed. That house is really the big house. I mean, it's almost rivaling River Run. The hell? When did Jamie and Claire become so prosperous?
That's what I noticed.
Wood paneling. And did you see that the parlor where Lord John and Jamie were sitting, that the upholstered chairs match the drapes and everything? When did Claire become such a domestic goddess? Because Book Claire didn't have an ounce of domesticity in her. She really wanted to cook. And
Mrs. Bug.
She tried every way to get out of some of the regular chores, but she did them, but grudgingly. So, I suppose, we can't hold them to our idea of what it should have looked like, because it's the show and the books are different. All that wood paneling and all the fancy crystal and the furniture, everything is just so top of the line. It's pretty, but it's a bit incongruous.
I had actually the big house. I wrote the big house looks like repurposed River Run with new colors. That's what it looks like to me. The same configuration, the same kind of way the rooms flow. It's pretty. I don't really mind that the house is lavish. I kind of like the idea of him living like a laird and them living, well. So I don't really mind. And plus it kind of feeds into the whole thing where he's doing very well with his whiskey business, which really wasn't the case in the books, but, so I didn't mind that too much. The other thing I noticed, actually, Courtney, you got me noticing this, the horses. I'm like, oh, there he is again. The Beardsley's horse.
Who was on the Beardsley's horse this week?
I know. It was like, Richard. What was it, Brown? Brown Richard. Was on it this week.
I thought it was Lionel.
One of the Browns. I don't know which one it was. I saw it. I was like, oh, there's the Beardsley's horse again. I was like, there you go.
I noticed the wall, so
Yeah, I know. The outside of the house with the maroon shutters. Again, that mustard, almost, yeah, it's like a mustard color with the, it's an interesting combination. But the other thing I noticed was how Brian, for some two people who are supposed to be moving to Boston, they sure did leave everything. I mean, it's like they left their house. Bree and Roger left everything, his guitar, all their dishes. I mean, it's like, if you want people to believe that you're leaving to move somewhere else, why would you leave everything?
Oh, good point.
So, you know, I kind of noticed that.
Maybe there's, well, you know, since Lizzie assumed that they were going to send for her later, maybe it would be like a kind of thing where they would go first by themselves because they'd have to stay in a tavern or something, and then later.
Okay, that makes sense. But the other thing that I noticed was the way Marshall fell. I was like, whoa, that was like, boom.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they filmed that to make it look so real without her hurting herself.
They would have had to have a different landing. Like she would have had to land on like a crash pad or something.
Yeah.
Because she did. She like,
boom. But they didn't have, I looked at that. I looked at it over and over again. And it's like either they must have had something soft that they made look like brick so that when she hit, but even then it did not sink in. It was like her face just went boom onto the ground. I'll look again and see.
They could have CGI'd the brick in after.
Because
there's no way. There's no way that she could have hit that brick like that and not seriously damaged herself.
I thought she was dead.
Yeah. That was such a good. What do you call that kind of fall? Just
plank.
Like face plant is what it basically it was, but I thought maybe they used a dummy to
do that bit. Okay,
fell down,
possibly,
and then you see her face from the side, but I don't know.
But that was it was well executed. Whatever they did, it was well executed, and I noticed it. And I always noticed her acting. You know, that whole thing she did with her hands when she was talking about the, you know, it's like a
joining hog.
Joining a hog, but in reverse. And I noticed they finally let Fergus speak more. He's so hot. He might be husband number 4.
Cesar.
Cesar, yes. I don't care. I mean, it's like I separate the actors from their roles. Fergus would bore me to death the way they have him written, but Cesar, I wouldn't kick him out of bed.
You could get it.
Especially if he's wearing
it, but I would take it, that's for sure.
You get it.
Especially if he's wearing his indigo.
Yeah. One other thing I noticed before I forget. How the hell are they digging that latrine so close to the house? The hell? I mean, I'm saying, the latrine. You basically step off the porch and straight into the latrine.
Well, you don't want it too far from the house because then at night you have to go.
And then isn't that the front of the house? Why the hell would you be digging the latrine at the front?
I thought it was in the back.
That is that
near
the back?
Her surgery.
I think that's the back.
Wherever it is, it's way too close.
I thought that too.
The other thing I noticed was, like Carmen mentioned, they were roasting shelled peanuts and burning them actually, and then shelling the other peanuts. But you know, they and they had actually a couple scenes where they had, because they had Lizzie doing the same thing with some type of pod. They were awfully large. They weren't pea pods.
Looked like okra.
Really, it looked like bean. It was lima, because no, okra isn't. It was potted. It was whatever.
It was probably a lima bean then.
Yeah, because it was large, so it looked like a lima bean or something.
Okay, I noticed a lot of stuff. The weasel Lionel is on the Beardsley horse. Number 1. When Lionel spits, pay attention. Number 2. You guys notice that every time he has like any
A lot.
kind of little contentious moment, he spits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Snakes do that, you know.
Mhm.
he's the weasel.
Yes, he is, but maybe they can't too.
I noticed that Brianna was driving the wagon when they pulled up to the Dutch house. Did you guys? this is bad, but did you guys notice that Lord John Grey says that William is the 9th Earl of Ellesmere?
No, I didn't. I didn't
What?
catch that. The length instead of
The-
ninth.
The 9th Earl of Errol. I mean, try to say that fast.
Ninth Earl of Ellesmere.
The 9th Earl of Ellesmere. I mean, he probably said it so many times, and they were just like, good enough, because I swear he says the 9th Earl of Ellesmere,
And
No,
then
I didn't notice it.
which is a little like a vampire would say, maybe.
Those teeth are in the way.
those teeth are in the way. You get out my head too, Carmen.
We talked about the character theme music last time, and it was there this time. If you know, he brings in that, I think it's a French horn for Lord John Grey, and then maybe a flute for Willie, and then it just there were so many characters, and their theme songs were there, their theme music. If Claire's having a hot flash, or she's going through menopause, wouldn't she wear a thinner shift to bed? Don't you think?
Well, she doesn't know she's gonna have a hot flash.
Well, yeah, but if it's hot, she's saying it's hot anyway.
Oh,
I forget what time of year we were in then already.
It's fall.
Okay,
fall.
so maybe not. Maybe she's just having. But I thought if I was having a hot flash, I would take that thing off and I would put my hair up first thing. Anyway, and and the first thing, this is what you guys do to me. The first thing I thought when that scene came on was, well, if Jamie was married to Antoinette or Catherine, he'd be in big trouble sitting on that bed in his pants.
And his stocking feet.
It's like, why
His
is she
stocking
dressed in
feet
bed?
were on that bed.
I know. And I
Well,
was
you're
like,
not allowed to wear your pants on the bed.
No.
Your outside clothes, no.
No.
And I wondered in the book, when Jamie goes to Claire at the window, he says, "Do you weep, Sassenach?" And she says, "No, I sweat." And Diana changed those words. So I just wondered about that. Why? She probably just didn't remember what she wrote before, maybe. I don't know.
Why
He said you taste salty. Have you been
asked her if she
weeping?
was crying.
He said, "Have you been crying last?"
Crying.
But
Crying.
in the book,
Yeah.
he says, do you weep, Sassenach? Anyway,
Okay.
I remember that scene. I didn't go back. I'm almost positive that's what he says.
While we're in the bedroom,
Yes.
that scene, did anybody think that his geography was a little bit off?
Yes.
Yeah, he really needed to be a little more to the left.
Oh, when he got in the middle, his forehead was doing all the work.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one point it looked like
It is imposing. So
one time he looked like he was enjoying the hell out of our shift.
We'll talk about that in the medical part, the anatomical medical.
Yeah, he was a little to the right there.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe he just started there, and would eventually make his way.
Yeah.
So we just have to use our imaginations. They can't do everything.
Yeah, he made a deposit later, so his bank account's all right.
Yeah.
The other things I noticed is Bree's biggest smiles are for Lord John Grey. So that chemistry goes both ways. And it's really like, I don't see her smile at Roger like that. So that's interesting.
He holds his hand a lot, though.
Lord John Grey?
No, Rogers. I noticed a couple times she reached for his hand in this episode.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Let's see. I loved Claire's outfit in the cabin looking at Bree's drawing.
Oh my God.
Wasn't that
yes.
so beautiful?
The
that
color.
shirt, it was like mustard with the olive.
Dijon mustard. It was like
Yes.
Dijon mustard. It
Oh.
was just
Yeah.
And then
stunning.
Costume
I
department is
seem to have written this in multiple places. Fergus looks amazing in his indigo
Yes, he
Gosh,
does.
yes.
with his
He looks
blue
amazing,
eyes.
period.
When he turns around, and he's with
When they're
Siobhan,
digging the
and he-
latrine.
well, no, it's after the explosion, and he's
Yeah, they're
Talking
digging
to
the
Germain?
latrine.
No, he's talking to Germain on his way back. When he gets on the ground, he looks around.
after the explosion, and then he looks back at Jamie in his indigo shirt with his blue eyes. I can't seem to remember what he said.
Girl,
Since we're talking about that scene,
Says
I'm
your
going to say
mom,
one
what are
thing.
you doing out
Did you
here at
notice-
this time of night?
No,
It's getting
after
dark.
But what's cute is that Jemmy has a slight Scottish accent and Germain has a French accent. I thought that was cute. I don't know if he's French.
Jemmy does have a Scottish. The
Yes.
kids are Scottish. He's got a very Scottish accent. And somebody said on Twitter that kid looks exactly like Ed Spaliers.
Yes, he does.
And
He really does.
He's got like the same face.
He does. He does.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny.
I know.
Anyway,
Mm.
Carmen, did you notice anything?
Oh yeah, I did.
Let me get a
Very
drink.
first scene in the cold start. If you noticed when they first saw the cabin, their horses are moving from right to left across the screen. But after they go down to the cabin and you look up, the horses are facing from left to right. That was a big one, I thought.
North to south, and
Actually, I thought they were, because I remember, because the thing I noticed was Claire's horse backing up.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I wonder if that was a happy accident or if she actually got the horse to do that. And so they were facing the same direction, weren't they?
No,
they
you
took
go
off
back
the
and
other
look
way.
at them.
Okay, I'll go back and look. Yeah.
Maybe they were headed back to Williams Creek. I don't know, but
Mm.
you know. But
some
anyway,
peanuts.
they're 180 degrees different directions in that particular scene. One of the things that I notice is that Jamie in this episode spoke French, he spoke Gaelic, he spoke English, he read Latin. And I liked that because language is one of his great skills. And I think Diana was showing watchers, and readers, that this is a well-educated man who has really great language skills to him. One of the things I thought was a little bit odd was when he showed to Bree the portrait of William. He said, "I wanted you to ken that there was more of your blood in this world than me and your mother." She's got a son. What about him? Why would Jamie say that when she has her own son and he has a grandson that has her blood in it? Now, it could be that he meant once you go,
I think
in our time, there will be someone left here that is of your blood other than your mother and I.
Yep.
But I did think that was a little odd. I would like to know what's growing in those hanging glass jars.
I saw that too. Those little round
They've been in there for quite a few episodes, and I would really like to know what she's growing in them.
in the surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're round and they hang from strings. I saw Jamie's famous dismount at the lean-to where Ulysses was. Did you see him? He was behind a tree, so you could barely see it, but he flung his leg over the horse's neck and did his famous discount. Let's see. Claire had on an indigo scarf when she was roasting the peanuts, So she was wearing some indigo too, and she had on an indigo blouse. So I feel vindicated by my worry that they that they weren't going to use the indigo in later scenes, and there they did quite a few times. Do you really think that Lionel can read?
I'll be very surprised.
Why not?
Yeah, why would he be able to read?
Well, his wife says she knows how to read, so maybe she taught him. I don't know, but he doesn't strike me his character.
I mean, he's probably
a scholar.
He's probably no scholar, but I mean, he's no scholar, obviously, but he can read. I mean, they're landowners, and it's not as if they're just scrabbling around in the dirt, you know, trying to eke out a living.
Yeah, but his brother could well be the reader. I mean,
there's a town named after them, and
there's a whole settlement named after them. They probably had some sort of education. Might have been rudimentary, but I
mean, I clearly that's the answer to my query, but I'm just pointing out.
You're not buying it.
Oh no, I don't. I think I can buy it. I just think that it's would be surprising in a character such as his that he would be able to read.
But he doesn't strike me as the kind of man who would marry a woman who could read if he couldn't.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, I'm not so sure. I think he would marry anybody who would take him. I think just like it was.
Well, that's true too. Where he would just force himself and be like,
"That's right. That's right." Yeah,
that's
how
read.
I see it.
Yeah.
The balm of Gilead. I looked it up. It is a salve that's made of wax, coconut oil, and cocoa butter, which I thought was really interesting. Now, I'm pretty sure that Claire could get her hands on the wax and the coconut oil because they're actually coconut palms that do grow, I guess, in some of the barrier islands off of North Carolina, at least nowadays. I don't know about then, but I'm not sure about where she got her cocoa butter from. Maybe she substituted something else for it that did. Another thing that I noticed is that, and I noticed this back in season 3 too. Remember, I've said it before when Claire was doing that abdominal surgery and she's got her hands going like this down in the surgery, and she's looking up at
Dr. Abernathy.
Abernathy. And, and she's, he's kind of trying to tell her, that the blood pressure is dropping. She needs to get out of there. And she's looking up when she's doing that. And I didn't like that because I don't think a surgeon would continue to mess like that without
looking at their hands.
Looking. Well, Bree was doing the same thing when she was gutting those trout. When she's talking to Ian, she's still working away with her knife and she's looking up at him as she's doing it. I didn't think that was a very good idea. The other thing that I thought is that do you think there was a road all the way from Fraser's Ridge to the Standing Stone that they could take that wagon? Because, when the three of them rode and they were on horses, it was pretty rugged. If you remember, there wasn't any, kind of freeway going through the area. But I thought that was a little.
Why did they take a wagon?
For the baby.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I don't know either. Maybe it would have been hard.
They showed Bree holding that fake baby doll in their lap. So why didn't they just stick them on the front of a horse?
For a 2-week journey.
Yeah, that's true.
Camping.
Yeah, they needed food and
there's a place to sleep.
They had to take a wagon because it was supposed to be a 2-week journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I noticed too that Lionel spits a lot, and it's always
when he's annoyed.
Yes, when he's
or very
feels
disdainful.
Yeah,
he's disgusted.
Yeah,
which is a great addition to his character, I think.
Yep. Claire says during the sperm scene, which I thoroughly enjoyed, Claire says, well, they can survive for a week in the proper habitat. Actually, that was not known back when she went back. That is a
Okay.
fairly recent study, and even then it was done in a fertility setting when women are plied with exogenous hormones. So it, they survived in the folds of the cervical canal. And I don't think we know. Usually most biologists say it's right around 5 days in the uterus, but I don't think the upward limits is known. So that I thought that was a little bit out of place. Well, did you notice that Lizzie, when she goes into the study and tells Jamie that he has a visitor, she looks pregnant. She looks about 3 or 4 months pregnant.
Really?
Her belly, yeah, you go back and look at it. She is, yeah.
I'll take a look.
Oh,
I have to look again.
It's really
Okay.
obvious. So I hope you guys do go back and look at that. And if you don't agree, let me know. I want to tell you that I listened to Matt's podcast, and the little girl that was burned, the little Dutch girl, that was all CGI done, the wounds and the burns.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Well, it was CGI enhanced. I listened to and I heard they did makeup, and then when they saw it, they added
the CGI.
Okay.
You heard him say that?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when
I
I was
didn't hear
looking
him
at
say
that, I
that.
thought it
Yeah.
was like a
They did both.
It looked to me a little bit like a CPR dummy that they had just sort of.
I wondered
put
too,
makeup
but
on.
it isn't. Her name is Daisy Littlefield.
Yeah, it's a real
Oh wow!
person.
Yeah, it's a
But
real.
did you
was a
notice
real
how her
child.
skin was burned, but her clothes weren't?
Yes, I did notice that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
had a couple of points of discussion before, and then we'll go to medical. So it wasn't said explicitly, but I did read the script on this one, and it was interesting because sometimes I go to read the script and I just have this feeling of like, I don't want to do this. But I found this script, I was like, it was like reading a Diana book. I was like, what happens next? What happens next? And it was really interesting for me to see what they left in, what they took out, which I'll comment on. But she mentions that is Wendigo Donner. That's the Native American man who's
Yeah.
And then there's a what's the guy's name? Treb or something?
Someone from the Caribbean.
Oh,
Yeah.
I heard his accent.
And then Hodgepile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they're going to pick that up in the next episode. And then Carmen, I was going to ask, you said, did we see either of the Browns in that raid? We didn't.
No.
So it was Hodgepile's group. Is that where you got that assumption?
yes, but that doesn't mean Lionel wasn't there. We just didn't see him come into her surgery.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's
If he
part
was
of
out
that.
there.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, I think he's behind it. What did they see
Who?
at the end?
Oh, I think they saw Ian. I thought they just went right back. I think she was thinking so much about, because that they're directed by who they think of.
Yes.
And I think that they were thinking so much of
Who they left.
Claire and Jamie that they just ended up right back where they started.
Because it's clear.
Then why did Ian not see them then? He's there afterward.
No, it's probably
There's
not
the
very much
travel
time,
time?
depending on time. I
Okay.
guess.
There was the time
Oh,
in
we'll see.
between.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because the little boy
We'll see.
obviously recognized who he saw because he ran towards them.
Yeah.
Even though it's
Something
probably his mom.
delighted him. Something delighted him.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about that because when they go back in the book, Jemmy is much older. He's old enough to remember.
Well, they go back for a different reason.
They do, and he speaks Gaelic by that time, and he's has a really strong relationship with Jamie, especially, and Claire, and is firmly rooted as an 18th century kid. So yeah, that's what I was, and there is that rule. They have to be thinking of, someone has to pull them mentally to where they go, and there's nobody there for them.
Yeah, and they have to have them there for the Revolutionary War scenes.
So
So I
why
think
would they?
so
Why
instead
would
of
they do this?
instead of having them leave later, they had them leave and come back.
I think they went into the chaos and got, who they were thinking about, took them right back where they were. That's what would be my first choice. But I also thought, well, maybe there was something like a nuclear power plant out there or a stinky freeway. Jemmy could well be fascinated by that, by, wow, what is this, as he runs toward it. But I think it's more likely that they didn't go anywhere. And, Jemmy, we know that he's very tied to his grandfather. And he may well have been thinking about Jamie when he started to go through those stones, and he's more powerful than either one of them.
Oh, good point.
So,
Good point.
he might have, steered the ship a different
Right,
direction.
back to Granda. Right, back to Granda.
Maybe he's going to be in the river when they.
Ooh.
I even thought that maybe they're seeing the Browns with, with hodgepodge, Hodgepile. Maybe they see Hodgepile with Claire.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to medical anatomical.
So the first thing I noticed was in the opening scene when they had the burns. The clothes seemed very intact for them to have been in a house that was up in fire. The other thing that I noticed, the first thing I noticed was that the arrow seemed awfully shallow to have killed anybody.
Yeah.
It didn't even barely get through the clothes, so it was like that.
Right.
That did kill them, whatever it was.
Yeah.
The other was that they showed a pretty good depiction of burns, and that her ear was fused to her scalp. And, her skin was kind of pulled away. Her lip was retracted. Her eyes had glazed over, kind of had become opaque.
That's interesting. I have a question about that. Can I ask you guys?
Sure.
Was that the most humane way to end that girl's life?
Yes.
No.
I think so.
I love it.
I don't.
I mean, because what else would they have done? Cut her throat?
No, shot her. But they wouldn't do that with the women there. So I'm saying that the quicker,
the whole
more
point was
humane.
to be quiet. Yeah. There was quiet.
They didn't want. I don't
involved.
think they told those women what they had done.
No, it's for everyone involved.
And that's why it was done. But there would have been a more humane way to do it, and that would have been to have shot her.
Yeah,
would have been more instant. And
I thought, oh my gosh, the poor kid. There's somebody's there's going to help you, and then they're like,
yeah, but then at the same time, when you're the oxygen, when your carbon dioxide level starts going up, you get delirious. I mean, you go into a delirium anyway, and so by the time she died, her brain wouldn't have been functioning in the same way as if she were lucid.
That's true.
So, but the thing is, I thought that was awfully quick. It usually takes 4 minutes or more to kill somebody.
She's badly injured.
Yeah, so maybe her lungs were damaged to the point where it didn't take much longer. The other thing I noticed was I kept thinking dysentery when they were filling their water bottles in the river. I was like, ooh, someone's going to get diarrhea from that.
They deserve it.
I know.
Or giardia or something like that.
And then, of course, was the shoulder reduction, the dislocation of the humerus. Depending on the direction, there's lots of different ways of reducing that shoulder. I don't know of any way to reduce the shoulder the way she did it. It would look like it was, and then Carmen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looked like it was anteriorly dislocated. So it was like dislocated going forward. So basically the way it was done, she should have had it forward and then twisted and then back. But there were so many other ways it could have been done that would have been a better way of reducing. And you probably know, you could be more specific about that than, because I can't remember all the names of the maneuvers. Oh, the other was that the PTSD reaction that Claire had to the still blowing up. That shrill panic and what was that? It was clear she reacted to the blowing up. It was like a bomb went off. And for someone who had been through war, that's what I heard when she came running out of the house. Because and that's what I thought she must have reacted. 'Cause, I mean, having lived through World War II and bombs, and then to hear that blow up must have just sent her right back. Oh, and the other was Brown's wife. They got the location of the fracture about right. It did look swollen in the right spot. However, she did not seem to be in enough pain to have had that kind of a fracture. I was like, she seemed awfully calm for her arm to have been that swollen and that painful.
Those are tough pioneer women. They're tough.
Yeah, she was a little bit too, I don't know. That would have hurt.
So I also noticed that Rose Brown, who's Lionel's wife, her wrist is black and blue, which is also not that's consistent with that kind of an injury. Often when it's one at the wrist, if one breaks, the other one will, or the other bone will dislocate, something like that. Some kind of combination. It's not a nice injury to have, actually. I agree with Kathy that she didn't seem that concerned, but when tissue swells like that, it helps splint. Believe it or not, it helps splint the movement of the bone, and it it's the periosteum, it's the wrapping around the bone that is where the most of the pain comes. So if she doesn't move it, it might not be as painful as if she were trying to move it. I thought the image of the sperm were great.
Oh yeah.
They're terrific little guys. They're very interesting cells. You can teach a full hour lecture on just the structure of sperm. They're very complicated, very complicated. I agree with Kathy that arrow wasn't embedded deeply enough to be the cause of death. She just plucked it out of there with great ease. And I noticed it in the script. She said that he was shot in the upper abdomen. Now that would have gone through soft tissues. It looked to me like this arrow was up in his chest area, but that would have gone through soft tissues and may well have, punctured the liver or something like that, depending upon the direction of the arrow. And I figure it was Wendigo's arrow that probably did that. The reduction of the dislocated shoulder, that was, like I said before, that was not well done. And Aristotle actually had his own way of reducing an anterior dislocation, and he would have the practitioner put their foot in the armpit of the person who of the side that it was dislocated, and then pull on it and it will pull it back into position. And but there's a lot of different ones now, but there wasn't then. Not back in the 60s, there weren't that many. Now there's like 7 or so different ways that you can do it: laying down, sitting up, different ones. I want to say this isn't necessary. It's sort of related to medical, but I love that Jamie's glasses case is on his belt. I don't know if you ladies notice him flipping it open on the left. He pulls out his glasses. I just thought that's just so Jamie, to have his things right there where he needs them. As far as the little girl, I just hope they didn't do too much up on her and then let her look in the mirror. That was a young girl, and that would be terrifying, I think, to see yourself, yourself in such extremis. But I agree with Antoinette. It just seemed so unlikely that her face would be so deeply burned, but her clothes are intact.
You mean Catherine?
I'm sorry, Kathy. Yes,
Kathleen.
I'm sorry.
You're as bad as
Catherine. I have another friend that's Kathleen that I've known for 20 years, and I keep calling you that.
It's okay. We look alike.
The other thing is, Do you really think Roger would be going around pulling those timbers and moving them with his bare hands? They were
No.
smoking.
Mhm.
They're
Some
hot.
of them, they're hot, and they stay hot a really, really long
Long
time.
time.
So I thought it not likely. I couldn't have been that long. The girl was still alive. You know, I think it unlikely that he would be moving around those timbers. I don't think he could have handled them.
Not to
And-
mention that the all the dust that would have flown up from moving them.
Yeah,
Good
that
point.
too, the soot and everything that was that would have been there. I did notice that Jamie did some finger tapping in this
Oh, yeah.
episode. That's anatomical, I suppose, which is consistent with his character. Oh, one other thing. Did you see how he was lying in bed?
With his legs out crossed?
Well, he lays on his back in the book
Mhm.
with his hands almost like the figure on top of a tomb, if you remember.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And he was very close to that. He had only one hand on his stomach chest. But I like that because that
Yeah.
is one of his characteristics. And I
Mhm.
like it whenever they, you know, manage to bring that into the storyline.
I think the fact that, you know, I think a lot of what we see Sam do is because of his respect for the character, not so much because it was written in, like the fork and knife for the sandwich and the other things. There's a lot of little things that he adds in simply because of his respect. And that,
Okay.
I think, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And why he's just so believable in that character.
Yeah.
Didn't
He
you
kno-
see a lot of reference back to earlier episodes? Him
Yes.
shouting Claire. Remember
Mhm.
that was back on Silky Island when he
Mm-hmm.
Claire, Claire, you know, after
Yeah,
she's
this
taken.
episode had a lot of callbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Previous episodes.
And you know, remember when Bree said you are impossible not to like? She said that back in season
Season
4 with
Laura John.
Love BJ about
yeah,
Claire.
and I knew you were a fairy, Auntie. That
Yeah.
was
Yes.
Yeah.
Right back to
season
season
3.
Yeah. If there's one thing Diana's great at, it's threading through. And you know, she
Mhm.
said that what she got is a list of things that needed to be in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
she's a researcher, so I'm sure that she was very diligent about tying those threads and drawing them through.
I mean, how could it be anything less? I mean, when you have the author of the books writing the episode.
Yeah,
you
but
know
she
it-
has that attention to detail for the show,
Yeah.
which some of the other writers we've seen
Do not.
not.
Well, of course. And,
So
you know.
even she's saying, you know, changing what she wrote, but making sure
Mhm.
that it works for the show.
Yes.
Antoinette, did you have any lawyerly, like particularly the document of manumission? Any?
I mean, those documents existed, but as Carmen said, who was it? Was it you that said that, Carmen or Kathy? One of you said it. That
They
that
look alike.
Brittany.
recognized it. I mean, if he got to what?
You know,
You
to be
poor,
honest,
you
we
poor
actually-
lass, Kathy.
actually, when it comes to anatomics, though, anatomically, Carmen and I look more alike than Antoinette and I do.
You do.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Except I'm an older version. I could be your mother.
But we have the same, like across here, we're very
Yes.
similar.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Sorry, Antoinette. Document of manumission.
Yeah, it's perfectly legal,
Uh-huh.
but not recognized. Because if he was on the road, and somebody could grab him, possession
Mhm.
offense of the law, he could be re-enslaved. So he would have had to get out of the South in order for that piece of paper to do him any good.
Mhm.
So the idea, was it Jamie who said that he could go to Philadelphia?
Yeah.
To go to the Quakers because they don't believe in slavery. That piece of paper, once he got clear of the slave catchers,
Mhm.
that piece of paper would have ensured that he could, assume his freedom.
You're a free man.
Him stepping on a British ship. I forget now when slavery was abolished in England.
It preceded America.
By a lot.
I don't remember when, but it They did it before we did.
Yeah, because you see, the thing is that a lot of people confuse the abolition of the slave trade with slavery.
Oh, okay.
Totally separate historical incidents. It abolished the trade, but emancipation,
It was much later.
stopping of the slave trade, was not at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if they were still in the time when the trade was abolished, but slavery wasn't abolished, him stepping on a British ship would mean jack shit. He'd still be a slave.
Yeah.
Well, but if a lord if he was under the,
I mean, who was going to question if a lord said, this is my freed slave, my servant? Because at that time, you remember, there were a lot of freed slaves in England at the time who were working with the abolitionists about the abolition of slavery. So there were a lot of black freed men in England historically around that time working with the abolitionists. So, you know, that's quite plausible. That's plausible.
Yeah.
I read in the script, she did have Ulysses telling his backstory as part of that scene. He tells that Jamie and Claire, that the guy owned him and he educated him so he would have a traveling companion. And then when I thought about you, Kathy, for this one, I think the guy died and then he was a slave again. And then when he went to River Run, when they found out how educated he was, then they said he could be a house slave. And I thought about you with your brown paper bag rule.
Yeah.
I think the reason that was cut out, I mean, they always cut out things for time, but again, you know, you kind of get all that from the fact that Jamie's giving him that big book, the way he talks.
It was a book on Greek mythology, if I remember, if I saw the title correctly.
No, it was Pam, Great Expectations.
Oh,
Great
yeah,
Virtue Rewarded. Was that what it was?
It's Pamela or Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson.
Right.
And I also thought about you, Kathy, because that is the book that Lord John Gray and Jamie talk about at Ardsmere, about how some authors just go on and on and on. And Diana specifically asked them to have that book in the episode.
That is one of my favorite sections.
I know
of all of her books.
Yeah,
because it was like she was like laughing at herself, and I just thought that was just so funny to me.
And what he says is, I can't remember which of them, if it's Lord John Gray or Jamie, says that some writers overwhelm the readers with detail, and some stories require more space to be told. And that's an Easter egg for book readers. That was the book that he had. The prayer that Jamie says is a death dirge, is a Gallic prayer in the opening scene. It's from, I can't read my writing, Carmina Gudalica.
That would be songs of whatever. That Carmina means songs.
From oral traditions in the Scottish Highlands. It is from the 1700s.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was in the book. Do you remember if it was in the book?
I don't remember if it was.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I was going to ask Carmen a quick question.
Yeah.
Or I don't know why I'm asking Carmen, because I'm just assuming you'd know. But when Lord John Gray says he'll obtain his majority, does that mean coming of age? What does that mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you ask your attorney; she knows.
Oh,
but yeah.
Well, I always ask you because you're the researcher. You always research stuff, so I'm like, okay, I'll ask Carmen.
Yeah, but that's law. But that's my understanding of it.
Okay.
But he has to become a certain age before he can assume legal ownership, because children can't legally own anything. They can't enter into. They can't assume any kind of control over property. So you have to.
I mean, I knew that's what it meant, but I just had never heard that term before.
Yeah, that's a common term, because you have you know, you're a
Huh.
child, and so when you attain your majority, that means that you come into whatever.
So I'm thinking numbers. I'm like, majority of what? But okay.
Your majority of years.
It's an odd term to me.
Yeah.
I've never.
Yeah.
It's very common. It's very
Yes, it is common.
Never heard it before.
novel.
Never
Wow,
heard it.
really?
Oh,
Oh,
I
yeah.
never heard it before.
Interesting.
Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice and all those books.
I mean, I read them so many years ago. I don't remember.
I reread my stuff a lot.
So you've heard that, you just forgot it.
I guess.
So this is interesting, I think, especially because you brought it up, Antoinette, when Roger says it's not just the safety issue, it's that we're living lives that we're not supposed to be living. In the script, in that scene, before he says that, he tells Bree that he killed the girl. And that's partially what he's referring to.
Okay.
Is that he has
You
to
know,
do
but his
stuff like
son was born in that century, and he's not paying any attention to that. Jemmy is from the 18th century, but he's ignoring that.
Well,
he's
and
only paying
also,
attention to him, basically, as far as I can tell.
Well, and also they just eliminated the threat of Stephen Bonnet.
Right.
So the timing is a little strange. You know,
I mean, I think it was the burning house. That's what I got the impression that people could just whole families could just be burned.
That's a good point.
You know, and even though, you know, they kind of know from the historical documents that Claire and Jamie are also going to die in a fire. They think so. So
maybe
I could understand why. Yeah, I could understand why as a father he was just like, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I have to protect my child, my family.
Jamie falls asleep reading Edmund Burke's Sublime and Beautiful, which she also put in there, which is from the 18th century. Okay, so the hot flash scene. Jamie was supposed to touch the silky hair of Claire's armpit when he says, I can't speak French, eau de femme.
Eau de parfum. Parfum.
Of like female. Eau
de
femme.
The smell of a woman.
Yeah,
the smell of a woman.
The scent of a woman. There you go.
Exactly, the scent of a woman, to touch her silky armpit hair. But that doesn't happen. And then in the book, after oral, or I mean in the script, Jamie makes... What?
What?
Okay.
She said,
I'm just being silly. It's that Cadillac Margarita. I said, who's he?
Oh.
In the script, after Jamie finally moves to the left and finds his spot.
And his forehead finds it, yeah.
Yep. Then he, as in the book, they make love. They have intercourse. And he's holding Claire up with as it happens in the book. They didn't do that. I'm not sure why.
Because
why did they?
Was too short. That if he tried to do that, she would have fallen out that damn window. They needed that window.
They could have made that window tall enough to accommodate it.
Yeah, but that's why he said, "Trust me."
No. If the window still had been higher, but practically it couldn't work because Sam is so tall that window high. She would have had to get up on the window. Well, it wouldn't have worked because
and there was also like a ridge. There was like a ridge on the windowsill where she had to have her ass on. I thought,
no,
it looked uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it looked very uncomfortable.
I don't know why they switched it.
Yeah, so in the script, we see them getting possession. Her getting possession of the swimmers.
Yeah, but when they went to film it and saw the set and realized that was not possible.
Probably.
Yeah,
probably.
They could have remedied that very quickly. The length
of how tall Sam is and how short that windowsill is, there's no way he would have had to have physically picked her up and she would have had to have been her back against thin air, basically.
And then it wouldn't have been that scene. So then in the sperm scene, the line, "Can you not take them out and give them a decent burial?" was
I
actually,
wanted them to have that line in there.
Yeah.
it was in there, and they took it out. I'm not sure why.
Why would you take that out?
I don't know,
It
it sounds like-
probably was filmed, but they clipped it. That's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. It's
Yeah.
probably in there,
Yes.
But
and they
it's
did
not
it,
like
you
it
know,
takes
with the
up that
editing.
much time, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, and also they took out, or it wasn't filmed, that he says, "A week, you say, then it's maybe possible that Wee Jem really is Roger Max."
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That was in the book. Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
you see the difference between one man's and another's? Well, no.
Mhm. She actually posted that whole scene on Facebook.
Yeah.
It was like,
But I'm saying it's in the script. It was in the script.
yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
not from the
I
book.
don't
It was in the
understand
script.
why they wouldn't film. I mean, that's a minute if so long to get those lines in.
Mhm.
Why would
She
you
said
cut
it's
that?
because
Especially since they mentioned, Bree mentioned, his, breaking of the opal could be an indication.
it
It was
could
said
be-
awfully casually.
maybe
but
they
it
felt
was
like,
still
okay,
said.
she already said that, we don't have to reiterate it or something.
Maybe.
Mhm.
She spatted his bottom. Did you see that?
What?
She spanked his bottom.
Oh, I thought you said you said you
oh.
spat at his bottom.
I was like,
Patted,
woo.
Oh, patted. I was like,
No more Cadillac margaritas for you.
Oh my!
and the white
You're
sow
bad.
reference was that in the script?
The what?
Was the white sow reference when she said, "I smell like the white sow"?
yeah, it
Was that
in the script.
It was.
Yeah.
Come and you're banned from Cadillac Martini.
I love it when she drinks those. I love it. Let's see. Also, let's see. This is something that I've noticed with Sam, and I think he's a wonderful actor, and hopefully I won't be attacked for saying anything. But one thing he doesn't play is, Jamie is affronted by the fact that she has his sperm, and Sam plays that very casually. That scene
Coolly.
was played differently, kind of like the way he plays jealousy. He doesn't really play jealousy as Jamie, and I didn't pick up that sentiment from him that Jamie has in the book, where he's like, that Catholic conservative, that piece, that part of Jamie. He doesn't really play that part. I was wondering if maybe Lionel Brown was accidentally hung too. What? He has a scratchier voice than
That's
Roger.
a genetic.
Well, I thought that, what? It's funny because I thought it was because of the smoke from the fire.
No, it's always he's like that.
Yeah.
No, he always has that voice.
He's got a gravelly voice, I
Yeah.
think. You just.
Yes. And the brother, what's the
Richard.
in this episode? There was a scene where he fronts up to young Ian, and I saw his resemblance to Dame Maggie
To his mother.
strongly. My God, she spits them out. They're her spit. Him and Toby Stevens. I mean, Toby Stevens has a lot of his father in him, but he also has a lot of Dame Maggie in him. I saw her in him.
Yep.
These are some notes from the podcast. They built that cabin, and then as soon as they had it built, they burned it down for that scene. And it's only in this episode. Can you imagine?
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
That's in a lot of time and
That's
effort.
probably why they only have 12 episodes.
Because of that damn cabin.
Wasting money building things to burn them down.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, so the finale and episode and this episode 511 were filmed concurrently. So they would do like a scene from this episode, and then they do a scene from the finale sometimes.
Wow.
So and you know what I really thought about that was season 3, when they had to go like jump back and forth 20 years when they'd change, and be 60s people and then 18th century, and you know, they shot scenes where they were already reunited and then they had to get reunited later, and I would think that would be hard, but
Yeah.
Matt said that the British doubles didn't know how to shell peanuts. They had to teach them because they don't do that in England. Or in
Interesting.
Britain. Yeah.
They don't know
Oh,
how to shell peanuts.
Yeah, they had to
No,
teach them. Like,
ground
you know, the
nuts.
people who stand in for the scenes while they're getting everything ready. He said they have constant conversations about how loud should the buzzing be. Can't have it this loud. It has to be match what it was, and it can't be greater than when they're standing by the stones, and how is the opal supposed to crack, and
what kind of sound it makes. And
and he talked about how at the ridge they have almost a 360-degree view around the house. You know, usually there's someone's house there or power lines or something that they have to film around, but this one is almost completely.
It's a perfect location.
Yeah.
The scene. No, I didn't like the scenes necessarily, but I loved when Ian, Bree, and Claire were at the river, and I loved just to see the river and the sound that it made.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That is a beautiful location.
It
it is. Did you see what he was putting in the river?
The basket.
Yeah, it was
it's a fish
fishing
trap.
basket.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was cool. I like it when they show things from that are period, if not completely correct, at least consistent with the time and cultures. I thought that was nice.
And Catherine likes the candle making scenes. I thought this was interesting. They were going to have, and I'm not sure, I asked Matt, but I didn't get an answer. They were going to have the Jamie and Claire tell young Ian that they're from the future in episode 508. So when he said something like that, when they filmed the scene with Jemmy and the Rock and how they're all just talking about it, and young Ian's not really having a big reaction. He's just kind of, I think when they filmed that, the assumption was he already knew at that point. And then they ended up doing the other scene later.
Oh, because Jamie said, oh, he can travel, and Ian was standing right there. And I was wondering, what the hell? Why is he asking that? Ian is standing right there.
Yeah.
Ian doesn't know who they are.
They're fairies.
Travel?
Yeah, so he already knew when they filmed that scene. They thought that was a supposition. Apparently, Gary Steele hates the lean-to. It's his least favorite thing, and every time they say in the script, you know, Ulysses is in the lean-to, he always says, is there anywhere else we can do it besides the lean-to? So at his going away party, they gave him a coffee mug with a picture of the lean-to on it. I thought that was cute.
That's cute. Did you guys notice the newel post for the stairway?
I noticed
look at the bottom of it. The bottom of it is turned like a spiral. It's the part that goes on the floor. I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. Yeah, look at it as when about the time that he's talking to Lord John. Stunning. It's the main post, for the stairwell. But look at the base of it, and you will see that it's just the spiral going down to the floor. Wow. It's really amazing.
I was just taken up by all the lovely wood paneling.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Beautiful.
The whole reason they moved upstairs to the wallpaper room that Catherine doesn't like is to do the window scene. Yeah, that was the whole reason.
The window scene.
Wow.
And
that was the ugliest wallpaper
they made the window too short for Sam.
Oh.
Exactly.
So Courtney, was the scene written with oral sex, or was that put in by the?
No,
she wrote it that way.
It started with oral sex and moved to intercourse, if we're being, And Antoinette thinks it's because of logistics with the scene.
Look at it.
I mean, he could have
That would
picked her
have
up
been
and taken her
easy to
back to the
solve.
bed.
It could
Yeah,
have
I mean-
picked up, but the whole thing was it was supposed to happen in the window.
It's an iconic scene, so
It
Yeah.
was an iconic scene.
Probably-
So
So
all they had to do was add a ledge to it. Add a
That's all.
windowsill.
It would have been easy solution for
Yeah,
those
yeah.
guys.
yeah, but
Come on,
probably
they
just
built a star
couldn't
chamber.
yeah, that's true. The last one was that the big house has actually rooms on the first floor,
Mhm.
and the whole upstairs is nothing. That's all on a a stage.
Mhm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Interesting.
We mentioned Bree's gorgeous Dijon mustard jacket when she's
You mean-
looking at the portraits.
I mean, Claire.
What did I say?
You said
you
Brie.
said Brie.
Oh, Claire, looking at Bree's portraits.
right.
Yes.
Okay, I saw
Daddy.
another jacket she had on that was stunning too.
Yeah.
And that's that pewter gray wool one it looked like she was wearing when she was working on the wife Rose's arm.
Mhm.
Look at it again. It's just
Yeah. The costumes this season actually were quite good.
it's just
They're
beautiful. I would love
they're
to have
good.
that
I'm
jacket.
pleasantly surprised by that.
I'm not surprised. I'm happy though. So are we doing quotes? Because I have some quotes.
Favorite
Okay,
line?
go ahead.
Antoinette?
Oh,
Antoinette.
favorite line. One of my favorite lines is from Ian when he says to Bree, "You're as daft as your wee one." When she said that the stone is hot, you're as daft as your wee one. That was so Ian. And my other favorite line was when Ulysses said that he stayed for her, and everything that he put into that her, history, everything, that one little word. My other favorite line was Ian again. What or who are you? What or who?
My absolute favorite when Jimmy woke up, he's like, "I woke up." Was my one. I loved it. The other was when Bree said to Roger, "We can't just go poof." And I thought that was funny. But my ultimate favorite was when you told me about germs, I thought they'd have wee teeth. I thought that was so funny. And it was just so much. I thought they'd have wee teeth. I mean, can you imagine being from a time where the information that something like sperm would just be fascinating?
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it's like, I wonder what would we have to experience for that to be the case?
It's an interesting thought. Alien.
Yeah. But even aliens, we would probably look at them and think, "Oh, you're here finally."
Yeah.
I saw you in such and such a show.
Yeah.
We're like, that's about time.
I like the poof one a lot too. I also like Jamie saying, "We strivers with handsomely thrashing tails." But I think one of the most touching lines was when he says to Bree, "Even though I may never see you again, you have made my life whole." And I thought that was a very sweet, lovely thing for him to say. And before that, when Roger says he can travel, and Jamie looks at them and says, "Will you?" And the way that he says it is just, oh my gosh, just Emmy worthy as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And the expression on his face.
Yeah. Just
Devastating.
everything.
So
right there.
subtly done and so powerful.
I loved "We're Not Alone," Sassenach. After they leave and he says that. And I thought, Carmen, you would say, "Aren't they marvelous?"
Yes.
There was so much in that I could have chosen from.
Yeah.
I didn't know which one, because that whole convo was just out of sight.
Yeah.
When she said that, you popped right into my head.
Yep, me too. I thought that was for sure going to be hers. And I thought it was funny when he said, "You could raise me for the dead for this." And in fact, she did do that like a couple of episodes ago.
Yes, she did. You're right.
Uh-huh. And I loved it when Lord John shows him the photo and he says, "Such a handsome lad." And he does that laugh that's kind of like, I'm such a stud.
I'm such a stud.
Yeah. I like when he said, "Will you give her my condolences, John, if you think she might value them?" That's so
nice. That was
Jamie.
nice.
That's so Jamie.
So Jamie.
That's what I said. I'm loving season 5 Jamie because I'm recognizing Jamie from the books.
Yeah.
And Diana Jamie is like Jamie.
Yeah.
So
do we have big themes
Hmm.
on Twinette?
I didn't even come away with a big theme, except in a lot of choices that were made. But that's a recurring theme in terms of choices. And family, whether they're present with you or not with you, you're still a family. You might be apart, but you're still a family. But I didn't come away with any big themes, to be honest.
Okay. Catherine?
My biggest thing that hit me throughout the whole thing was consequences. It just seemed like everyone made a decision, or things would happen and then there were consequences because of those things. Or you made a decision, there were consequences of those things. I think Roger, euthanizing the little girl, the consequence of that was he was ready to go back. Even Ian playing with Jimmy, consequence of that, they figured out he was a traveler. Jamie not, joining the Browns, the consequences of that. It just seemed like there was always something that one action leads to another, which is all of Outlander, really. But then the main thing, I don't know if it was a theme or not, but it was definitely transformative. When the season started and they burned the fiery cross, I had a visceral reaction to seeing that cross burn. When I saw it in this episode, it was almost, I wouldn't say pride, but it was just like, yes, Jamie, it's like it was a totally different reaction. Completely different reaction. And the only thing that could have transformed my early reaction in the season to this reaction was because of the episodes themselves, because there's nothing else has changed in my life to be that way. But I did not react. It was just was not. I had a good reaction to watching that burn. It's like, yes, go ahead, call your warriors. It was just like a call to arms, and it just completely different reaction.
Interesting.
I just got chills.
Yeah, that's cool, Kathy.
That's really
That's
cool.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Art, that's what art does. It transforms you. That's when you know it's art. It's not just television. It's not just, something frivolous. It can transform you, and that's exactly what this did.
So I kind of went back and forth on my big themes and trying to articulate to myself. And what I came up with is the heartbreak that comes with the inevitable letting go of someone that you truly love, especially as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And when you make those decisions, when like, this is right, but it's killing me,
Mm-hmm.
but you rise to that occasion and you just say, this is right.
What needs to be done?
That was a big theme in this, for Jamie and Claire letting those guys go, and that pained them so much, and Lord John going back to take care of Willie and his inheritance, those guys leaving, really for the most part, I think in Roger's mind, is for Jem. And Brianna saying goodbye to all her whole family. And even young Ian wants to go back to make it right with his wife.
Well, I'm I'm on your wavelength here, Courtney, because I thought it was about separation and goodbyes. And you cited the people that I would have cited too. I would add to that Ulysses from Jocasta, Ulysses from where he had grown up. He's going to be going someplace completely different for him.
Yeah.
Now we have Jamie and Claire separated at the end.
Yeah.
So she's been taken from him. And Lizzie being separated from Bree, and yes, that hasn't been emphasized this season, but book readers know that and that they have a firm bond. She's often taking care of Jemmy for Bree in the books. Ian's separation from the Mohawk, like you mentioned. William separated from Jamie, and he knows it. And he must have lost that first portrait in the shipwreck. We never find that out, I don't think. But now he has a new portrait of him at an older age. And I couldn't help but think about this in the context of what we are all going through right now with COVID-19, where we are separated from our communities. We're fortunate that we have this technology to allow us to, interact like we can. But it is not the same as going up and putting your arms around someone that you love.
No.
And it's very hard for me. My husband has been started my Mother's Day last night with gifts and treats because he said that none of our children can come, and say and wish me a happy Mother's Day or spend time. We always have meals together at this time. And so I thought that was, I know it wasn't planned that way, but it's pretty amazing that theme would come forward at this time when the whole world is experiencing the separation from our life and from our normal routines that, that we've come to love or not love, as the case may be.
Very
so
Outlander.
That's my very Outlander. Yeah. And by the way, Jamie, I read that he singed his hair when he was lighting that cross.
Yeah.
The flames leaped back and singed Sam singed his hair. He got so close
and
to
his eyebrows.
His eyebrows, and probably part of the wig, I would imagine. He didn't say exactly, but
that's ooh. Did anyone else notice that the painting of William looked like an older version of the actor who played William?
It was him.
It was. Matt said that. And that was my question. I was sitting here. This is what we do to remember so we don't interrupt each other at our house. And I was like, damn, why did I have that? Do you guys think that same kid is going to play older William?
I hope not.
I hope
he won't be old enough, would he?
I don't know, because I think he was playing I think he was older than he was playing in the last one, and then it will have been a few years.
Yes, it will. I don't know. I didn't think he was handsome enough. I liked him, but I just didn't think he was handsome enough to me to play Jamie's son. But I will also say that I don't think that the casting of Germain is very compelling. That little boy doesn't have any snap, and he's quite a character in the books.
Well, so is
in fact, yes.
So maybe he matches TV Fergus.
But when the abduction occurs at the still, not in the house, but at the still in the books, he's a hero. He gets down from that tree, he watches what happens and he goes and gets help. And, this little boy just was kind of just standing there.
This one's too young, I think. I think
he is too.
One, they needed an updated Germain by the end of the season.
Yeah.
None of the kids aged. That was one of the things I noticed is, a year or two in a little toddler's life is a big deal.
Yeah, big difference.
So
Well-
let's do standouts and then wrap up.
Yeah,
Antoinette's sinking further and further down on her
I'm getting
couch.
sleepy.
and I tell you, wait a minute, standouts. Little Jemmy was a standout for me. The kids who Jemmys.
Andrew and Matthew Adair are their names.
Andrew and Matthew. Excellent job in this episode. The ensemble was a standout for me. I didn't think anybody really took over and really elevated above anybody else. I think the whole ensemble was a standout. Everybody in all their scenes, everybody, did the
Delivered.
justice. So I thought the ensemble working together was a standout. I thought set decoration for the burnt cabin, I thought it was really, really good. Well done. I really like that. So that was a definite standout for me.
What stood out for me acting wise was definitely the children who played Jemmy. Just obviously intelligent and just comfortable with it. And then the way that he interacts with Bree. In fact, that's probably the most realistic I've ever seen her act is when she interacts with him, because it just seems like there's a real love for the little boy. The other that stood out for me was the music. While listening to some of the music, I could really hear how much Scottish influence there is in hymns, because they were playing, and it's like I was hearing there's a Swahili hymn that we used to sing when we were in school, and I could hear it, and I thought, you know what, it's probably because it's a Scottish, just like an Amazing Grace, and others, but I could hear it in the music. The other was the costumes. Again, they're just those jackets.
Oh God!
And Lord John Gray's boots. Did you see his boots?
Yeah, although
They were really
cool.
clean.
But see, interestingly, look as good as he normally does. But then I guess those are like his riding clothes. But his pants look too big, or maybe it's because I was used to, bonnet from last time.
Yeah,
They weren't silk.
Where are
They
his
weren't
silk
silk.
pants?
you want everybody to be skin tight silk pants.
I like what you said, Antoinette, about the ensemble, because I thought everyone was very elevated in this episode. Actually, the acting. I was so impressed with Caitlin O'Ryan, I think is her last name.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sam did a beautiful job. I thought Sophie stepped up in most of the scenes. The Browns, Jemmy, Richard, Katrina. It was a solid performance by everybody. I thought John Bell.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the woman, like I said, who played Rose Brown, really, Haley Doherty is her name, and Daisy Littlefield, the burnt girl.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad that I'm like. I have to mention Diana as a standout for writing the script. I thought, again, I enjoyed reading the script, and I felt that each of the scenes were really well written, and I really enjoyed each of the scenes. Even the one by the river, to me, it was just a little less organic, but it was still, by itself, it stands way above many other Outlander scenes. The music, the costumes, I thought the director did a good job, Jamie Payne.
Yeah.
He did 2 other episodes this season. He did the Beardsley episode.
And he's going to be doing the finale.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay. He also did the Brownsville one. So I think he's good. Those are both good
those
episodes.
are good.
Yeah.
As far as standouts, I always think that Sam is at the top. I just think he nails it.
Yeah.
he knows this character. He said he knew this character, and he does know this character, in my opinion. And Katrina was really very good, I thought. And she's getting much better. I agree with Kathy as a clinician, as a healer, a health care worker. She's much more convincing than she is when she's shouting and throwing stuff around and commanding people to do this and that. I don't think that's very convincing. I know you're probably not going to believe this, but I actually thought that Sophie did a really good job in this episode. One of the best that I've seen her. I was convinced by her performances that she was projecting what she was supposed to be feeling. And I felt that from her. Jemmy, unbelievable. The two little boys that are playing him, they're absolutely unbelievable. And then I think that Ned Dennehy, who's playing Lionel Brown, oh my gosh, he is so creepy and nasty and dirty. It's just he's just awful, and he's convincing in that, to me, in that part, completely convincing. Ian broke my heart in this episode. He really did, because, you can just see he's just racked with pain. And I think guilt, but I know the backstory. But I just thought, I agree I like the term you used, Antoinette, the ensemble. They all just, everybody did their part, and they did it very, very well.
Yeah.
What time is it?
It's
11:37.
11:30 your time.
Oh, yeah. So I might as well
guys.
watch Outlander.
Oh, 11:30.
8:30, 9:30, 11:30. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
guys. Thank
don't have
you.
Bye.
Thanks so much for doing
Bye.
this on your Saturday night.
Okay.
Love
Have
you.
pasta
Bye.
time.
LWL, stay awake. Bye.
Be safe.
Bye.
See ya.
Be safe.
Bye. Love you too.
You too.
Bye.
Guys, bye.